Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties there, but we're here all the same. Good morning again. My name is Randy Lober, your growth marketing manager here at Action Benefits, and happy to welcome you along to today's session where we'll take a look at Coverage for One and take a look at what it offers for you on the Medicare Advantage side of your business. Before we get too far into things and showing you how things work, I do want to introduce Jessica Schmaltz, one of our account managers on the individual team, could even be your account manager on the individual team. Jessica, I want to give you a chance to say hi before we go forward.
Hi, everyone. Most of you probably know me, and if you don't, my name is Jessica Schmaltz. I'm on the individual and Medicare team. I've been with Action for about 11 years now, and I'm happy to be here with you today.
Thank you for joining us today, Jess. I know you've got a lot of information to share, a lot of expertise to share with us here this morning, especially as we go through some of the underwriting intricacies that we talk about here in the Med Sup portion of our presentation. Full disclosure, I'm generally a camera on guy. If you're coming to Action trainings for any length of time, you know that. But today, because the star of the show is Coverage for One, I'm actually going to turn my camera off. Also because it's like a live demo and I don't want you to see me sticking my tongue out at you all day either. So turning my camera off, but I am still here, still talking to you as we would normally. Let's give you a little bit of a background about what you see on your screen here, because Coverage for One has gone through a few iterations, and then we'll dive into the good stuff, right? Talking all about Medicare Supplement tools that we offer to our partner agents. So Coverage for One gets its start actually as an individual under 65 platform right around the time when the ACA came out and when we were exclusive to Blue Cross and providing some support with them and for them in that market. Coverage for One at that time was really one of the only private exchanges you could go to where consumers could go and shop and conduct enrollments for their Blue Cross business. Blue Cross eventually took that business back in-house for a portion, but when they let us back in to help service and help them grow their business, they also gave us the opportunity to expand our under 65 offerings to include priority health on the under 65 side. Recently, over the past 2 years, Coverage for One has really expanded to work on all your individual health insurance lines, including your Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement functions, as well as having its own enhanced direct enrollment pathway in Stride Health. So if you were to go to CoverageForOne.com and you saw your agent tools over here, this is exactly what you'd see if you went to CoverageForOne.com. You'd be able to poke around, log into your marketplace section here, or go straight to Sunfire, which is our Medicare partner, and that's where we'll spend our time here today. I have already logged in another tab because I don't want to show you the whole login process. Want to get you right to the good stuff here and showing you Coverage for One. Jess, I just want to confirm that you can see this tab and you're not still stuck on the Coverage for One screen.
Yep, I can see it. And I just want to throw in real quick, I know Randy's not showing that front end login screen, but if you have questions on how to get into that, please reach out to us on the individual team or your account manager, and we can help with that.
Yep. But it really is as simple as coming to Coverage for One and clicking on the Medicare page, and it's going to ask you for your username and password. And again, we can help you find those from there. But the point of today is really digging in, figuring out what Coverage for One can do for you and whether or not you want to use that username and password in the first place. Hopefully by the end of our 45 minutes here today, probably a little bit less, we'll get you across that finish line. So if you've not been in before, I want to give you a quick tour of what you can see and do inside the platform before we dive into the Medicare Supplement portions of the tool. And I'm going to bring this full screen for us here as well, so it's even easier for you to see. First thing is down the left side, we have our home screen, which brings us to a dashboard. It allows us to search our contacts, quote and enroll right from here, send a scope, and view some reporting on the book of business that is written through Sunfire. I can see my recent contacts. I can look for older contacts. And that's one thing we should point out about Sunfire right away, is that it does keep a history of everyone you've interacted with through the platform. You can change their statuses, whether it's sold business, whether they're not interested. It really does help to function as a bit of a customer relationship management database, CRM on the back end. And you can see some of the sample data we have here and some things we can do with them. Coming down the left side menu bar, I also can search contacts. So if I know I've worked with the beneficiary before, and I've already maybe whether they're a prospect or a part of my book, I can search them up by name here and get some ideas here and see whether they're enrolled, what else has gone on with us for us as well. Down the left side, I have the ability to go straight to the quoting, which we'll definitely spend some time in here today. I can send a scope and also access the reporting links. There's always a help button available to you, so you can always view the help center and see some things available to you there. You'll see any notifications, like for example, if I have a beneficiary that has signed a scope of appointment digitally, that is a notification I'll get to me right away here. But where today's tour really starts off, especially if you're a new user or have not used in a while, is I want to take you to the agent profile page here. On the agent profile page, you have a few things you can play with that really help turn this in the overdrive and help you manage your Medicare business. So you always have a username up here. You always have a password up here you can change, but you also always have your ready to sell report. And this is a record of the carriers that have told us that you are ready to sell with them. So if you're wondering why a carrier perhaps doesn't show up in CoverageForOne for you, this RTS or the ready to sell report can go a long way toward help us figure that out. If CoverageForOne doesn't have a record or the carrier doesn't have a proper record, you might be aligned under another FMO for that, and that might be why the business doesn't appear here. But in any case, it's a good place to start problem solving if you're wondering why you can't see a carrier or why you are seeing a carrier for that matter. There are some customizable shopping links in your picture. You have the opportunity to plaster either your picture or your logo, whatever you choose, right here in the platform as well. It would take the place of this T up here for training. You can put in there. You also can put in your information. If you do happen to work in California, you're required to put in your California license number as well. But you also have access to this PURL. And this is, as I said, that personalized page that you, with a link that you can hand off to consumers to quote and enroll themselves if you choose, if they so desire. We can spend some time with that a little bit later on in today's session as well. You get to handle your notification settings. You get to handle your contact information. It's important that you complete this because this shows on all the communication that is generated from the platform, whether that is a text, whether that is an email, or whether that is your personalized page. And you have the opportunity to update your signature. So simply by clicking edit and then signing. So let's say I am in training here. I did not get an A in penmanship in elementary school, and I still haven't. But say this is my training here. All I would need to do is save that signature. And wherever an agent signature is required throughout the process, especially on the scope of application, I can automatically apply that e-signature anywhere I need to. So if my profile is saved, everything here is logged, and everything looks good for me, I'm going to come back home to our dashboard here. And while I know the thrust of today's presentation, what got you in the door today is Medicare Supplement, you're often not talking about Medicare Supplement without bringing up Part D prescription drug plans as well. So I do want to show you the scope of appointment features available to you here. Really simplifies the process and helps you build that content profile kind of the right way right from the beginning going forward. Two ways you can get to the scope. You can click on send a scope or use the scope of appointment button here. We'll start with the send a scope button here. And you have options for sending that scope. You can email that scope if your beneficiary prefers to work that way. You can text that scope. You can complete the scope. So this is if you have a signature pad or something that the beneficiary can write on or even use their mouse to draw a signature. They can work on the scope with you from the same device. Maybe you bring your iPad with you or a tablet with you for this portion of the appointment. Or if you happen to have a PDF of a scope, right, or you've scanned a scope in, you can also attach it to one of your prospects or one of your clients using that button here. Here in the training environment that I find myself in, the text button usually works. So I'm going to show you what that workflow looks like. First things first is, again, we know we don't need a scope to talk just MedSup, but we do know that if we want to talk about Part D plans, we'll at least want to check that. Can be a good idea to check everything here, and the beneficiary has the opportunity to sort of countersign and change these a little bit later on. But if you want the most flexibility in your appointments, again, always a good idea to check all of these. So maybe, a conversation that we think starts with MedSup actually ends over in Med Advantage because of underwriting. This gives us, kind of covers us as we go forward. You'll be asked to put in the beneficiary's first name. So we're going to get creative here and call them May, and we'll call this sample 2 because I already have a sample 1 loaded here for us. Phone number is optional here. If we don't put it in now, we'll ask us for it later. Street address we can put in here as well. And the bonus of doing it here is anything we put in here does carry on over to applications and everything else here too. Also gets built into the CRM, the customer relationship management functions of the platform here as well. Remember that 48-hour rule is back in effect again. So we're going to say for today's sake that this beneficiary walked into our office, but you do have that option of, noting whatever other contact you had with them. Our signature is not there yet because we can't sign until the beneficiary has completed their portion. We'll list the plans we'll represent. We'll say the appointment was completed today because it was a walk-in, and today is, it's 2024, not 1924. And again, this was a walk-in for us here. And all the standard definitional language that appears on the scope of appointment is for us here. What we can do is text this over to the beneficiary, and I am going to put my cell phone in here, so don't text me, please, unless you want to, I guess. But what happens is when I select text, it's going to send a electronic text over to the phone number I put in. The key point, though, is the beneficiary is going to need this personal code, the 625318 number, to unlock. It's sort of like their password to get to that scope of appointment. So I am pulling up my phone, and I'm going to e-sign over on my end. What they are getting is an electronic scope of appointment, digital scope of appointment that looks like anything else you've done. If you have the beneficiary on the phone with you, good idea, to be able to read this code out to them or send it over to an email, depending on how they want to be contacted. And I'm going to go ahead and finish signing this in the background here. Jess, anything to add about scopes or rules while I go ahead and finish this portion up?
I don't really have anything to add necessarily, but this is a really cool feature. I think, having multiple ways to get that scope to the member, whether it's in person, the text feature is super cool. And then the fact that it stores it for you. So I just really like this part of the system. If you're going to use CoverageForOne, Sunfire, for quoting, or just use it for the scope. I mean, the fact that you can keep a diary or, a dashboard of people that you talk to, and the fact that it's keeping that scope for you, it just makes it really easy for renewals the following year too. So,
yep. We should mention, of course, that Sunfire does retain the scope for the current year plus 10 years, just like CMS guidelines mandate that it does. And you notice that while Jess was talking, I did complete signing on my phone and I hit refresh here. It tells me that the scope is not complete yet, and it's not complete because I don't have his agent signature on it yet. So I can click sign, and voila, the signature we populated a moment ago is now on that app or on that scope. And to prove it, I can see that I can click on view here. We can look that this was May sample 2, when we signed it, when the agent signed it, and I have the rest of this, the scope, including the e-signature I just offered there. And if I want to do so for my own records, I can choose to save this as a PDF if I want to keep that in my filing cabinet and be double sure that I do have record of that scope of employment. So there's the scope, and that's where we can start our business here today. One thing I do want to call out is when you are working with the beneficiary, you're going to see their name up here. You'll see whether they're an active client of yours, new, duplicate, a bunch of statuses you can choose from them here. I am going to keep this as an active person for us here and just save their status. But if I did want to quote someone else, again, I could open up the new contact up there when that dialog is open. Speaking of my contacts, though, if I come back to my home dashboard, scopes are one thing, but we actually want to see what the products do. So let's go ahead and do that. So this was May sample 2. I can view information about that contract by clicking on the 3 bullets here. I can start a quote. I can send them my personal URL via text or email if I so choose. Or again, I can view a scope or send another scope if maybe I used a scope without making a sale. That's always a possibility. I can resend a scope right from this person here too. But let's go ahead and start that quote and take a look at what that looks like. All right. So because of where we started here today, there is some information that is not yet populated for our person, but fear not, we can always put some information in up here and move forward. Let's go ahead and say, for example, this person is not enrolled in a Medicare Advantage or PDP, and they're currently on original Medicare. And so as we save these answers, it's going to update some of these here as well. That's one way we could do that. Another way we could do that is come back to the customer profile. And again, we kind of get a walkthrough of what the customer is working on here as well. So I could start with their zip code. We said earlier they were in Southfield, 48075. At this point, I do have the option of looking up their or putting in their MBI and see if they have any current enrollments and getting their eligibility dates. Because we're in the training environment here and we're not actually submitting that application, I'm going to ignore that for now, but know that you can put that app in here. The reason we're not ignoring it is because in the training environment, it doesn't connect with CMS. So it's going to give me a bunch of error messages anyway, but the live environment you have access to will show you what whether they're eligible for Medicare or not, as so long as you have the MBI. Down here, I do have the option to choose what kind of plans I want to discuss here in this appointment that's coming up. We know that we want to talk about Med Sups and PDPs in this appointment. What we said earlier about this person not being enrolled in an MAPD or a PDP is still true. That carries over, and we know they're in original Medicare. We can choose any effective date we like here, as long as it's in the next 6 months or so. We'll choose the gender because we know that impacts rates. We'll put in a date of birth, and today, if I'm not mistaken, is still May. So let's say May 1957. And the Part A date and Part B date will auto-populate based on when it thinks the person should have been eligible for those parts. Again, if I have a working MBI here, your A and B down here will auto-populate. Because we are concerned in this demo about seeing underwriting, I am not going to check the GI box, but if I were, it would remove the underwriting questions here for me. I'm also going to say right here for this, for these purposes, this person does not use any tobacco products. And here's where the fun begins. As it asks about pharmacy and medications, rather, we're going to have the opportunity to put those in, and it's going to both help us see how those med drugs are in pharmacies are covered under the variety of PDPs we have available, but it's also going to ask us if there's any conditions that would knock us out of being covered with one or more carriers. So say, for example, I can start a medication search here. I'm working with someone who has asthma, and they take the generic for Advair, and they're on a fairly high dosage maybe. The standard run-of-the-mill isn't cutting it. I can choose my dosage from here, knowing that it only shows us how that is dispensed, so we don't have to make any judgment calls on that. We can kind of guide the consumer from there. We can look at refill and quantity every month as well. And it's going to ask us, what are you taking this drug for? And this is pretty important because this is going to give us that first step in underwriting warnings here. If, for example, I say I have COPD and I save that medication, I don't know where medication is coming from. That's a word I've never said before in my life until this moment. But it says right away, one or more plans will not be available based on the applicant information. So it's looked at that drug I've mentioned, looked at the condition here, and it says, oh, you might be knocked out from one or more plans. And I can edit that from here as well. Maybe the condition I have is not listed there. And because no one takes just one drug to control their asthma, let's look at their rescue inhaler 2, their albuterol sulfate HSA. One inhaler every month. We'll say it's a chronic respiratory condition like asthma and save that medication. And maybe they're also on a cough suppressant. Maybe they have cough variant asthma here as well. So we get these benzonatate, Tessalon pearls, and their conditions not listed here. So again, we're seeing, based on everything we put in so far, one or more plans may not be available to this beneficiary. That's a good thing for us to be able to know and pass along to them saying, let's think about our options going forward here. We'll be asked here for a pharmacy that the beneficiary prefers. Say, for example, I actually used Costco, or the beneficiary uses Costco. We can save that here as well. And if they are eligible for LIS based on the MBI here, this question will autofill. Otherwise, we could just ask them, for easiness' sake, we're going to say this person does not receive extra help or LIS. And there is some more fun stuff here where we talk about specific underwriting questions. I should say that these underwriting questions may be a bit different than what you're used to seeing on a Blue Cross Blue Shield MedSup app, for example. And the methodology here is Sunfire took a look at the big 5 national carriers like Humana, like Mutual of Omaha, like United Healthcare, and kind of smushed their underwriting questions into one survey here to really get some underwriting guidance here. So I'm going to say, for example, this person does live in an assisted living facility, and it's going to tell us that MedSup is not recommended outside open enrollment or GI for this person because those major nationals won't take them. But Jess, I know you're going to have something to say about this one.
Yeah, I mean, we all know Blue Cross is the carrier of last resort, so they're not going to deny a member based off of their condition. They just may or will upcharge them or give them a higher tier rating because of the condition.
Right. So keep in mind that it is a program, and really a lot of the underwriting logic here is built on, again, those big national carriers, not necessarily regional carriers like Blue Cross or Priority. So keep that in mind as you're going forward and talking with your beneficiary. So say we don't live in assisted living, we don't have any pending surgeries, because if I did, again, I would get that notification here as well. Even if it's a joint replacement or otherwise, a lot of the larger national carriers won't take a look at you in this case. We can talk about cancer treatments, when those might have occurred. We can talk about ER stays. And again, I haven't raised any red flags yet, but because I still have my flag from earlier here, if I can talk about diabetic history, a history of any heart issues, or if I'm on a COPD or required nebulizer or oxygen. And again, because I had, these medications up here that indicated some conditions, it still does warn me that one or more plans may not be available based on the information so far. So with all that said, we can go ahead and view the plans available to us. And we are focused first on Medicare Supplement. So over here on the left-hand side, you do have the option of filtering down to plan type. You can filter by plan letter. So maybe I want to look at G's and N's for this particular person. And maybe I do want to narrow it down to blue, Humana, UHC, Priority Health, and Wellbe. So if I'm looking at G's and N's side by side, I can see this person I already have working with here at the moment is a 67-year-old male, doesn't use tobacco, doesn't get a household discount, although I can plug that in here and it applies the discount to the rates. Although if I do that, I do need to come back here and refilter everything. And now I see that if I'm going based on premium alone, this Humana Plan N could be a good fit for this particular beneficiary. It does, of course, lay out your deductibles on that plan. For some plans, again, depends on whether you're talking about Humana Medicare versus the Humana Achieve product. It does show you if there is a 3-year rate history, it shows you their average rate history, shows you the rating type, whether it's age attained or community rated, which are the two predominant types here in Michigan. Don't see many applied age rating types here. And it does show you what the last increase looked like. So in April 2024, this Humana product actually had a decrease in their rates. If we were to scroll down again, we'd see again more information about Priority Health Plan N or Humana's Plan G and what their rates have looked like over time, and their increase gives you a good idea of what stability looks like for that person, or rate stability looks like for that carrier rather. We'll notice here that I have the option to enroll in some plans, but not all. So for example, I can enroll directly in Humana or UHC, but not for Priority Health. Again, that's a Sunfire thing. They have built those links over to the large national carriers, but regional carriers like Blue or Priority. This is as far as you go with MedSup. You can get access to the rates, but you can't conduct the enrollment here on this side yet, though we do have word that will be coming soon within the next few rounds of updates. Jess, anything to add about MedSup before we take a look at PDPs?
So one thing I did notice as you were scrolling, each carrier's different household discount percentage. So some were 12, some were 10, some were 7. So pointing that out, that it's including that information. And then I think maybe you just said this, but it is showing all of the carriers. So I even logged into mine and my agent account, and I'm only appointed with so many carriers, but it was showing me all of the carriers, which is a good thing. But if you're not appointed with those carriers, then that could create a problem. But it also, if you notice, there's only some carriers that it will actually allow you to click that enroll button, but it doesn't allow you to enroll. It takes you to the carrier site. So you may be showing the rates, but if, again, you're not appointed with those carriers, it won't allow you to actually enroll the member. So if that is a plan that they're interested in, we do have that referral agreement. So if that's something, your client really wants that Humana, we can help you get contracted with them. Or if it's not something that you're really interested in, you could, reach out to us about the referral program that we have here in-house.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're not able or willing to contract with another carrier, we are happy to provide that finder's fee to you. Great added, Jessica. So we talked a bit about MedSups here. Let's also take a look at Part D plans because your coverage is not complete without one. And let's take a look at the slightly different view and slightly more detailed view we have available to us here when we talk about Part Ds and really MAPDs as well, were we to talk about those in this session. So we see the plans available in that zip code. I know I offer 7 PDPs, so this account offers 7 PDPs in that zip code. All that information carries over. So I only had to put the drug information in one time. I only had to put the pharmacy information in one time, and it's here in the system. Down the left side, again, we can filter by plan type. I can filter by whether or not the pharmacy I put in is preferred. So that would drastically narrow my options here. Or I could filter by carriers and premium types here as well. So say, for example, we want to see everything. Maybe there are some savings if the person is willing to change their pharmacy. We'll show everything for the moment. If I click on one of these menus, I can expand it. I can see what the monthly premium is, what their estimated annual cost would be. Any of these links here is clickable here, so I can see of that, only $408 is drugs. The rest would be premium cost if I'm doing my math right there. I can see that Costco is preferred. I can see that 2 out of the 3 drugs we put in are covered. We can find more detail here in just a moment. And if I want to change my pharmacy, right? So it does shop drugs across pharmacies when I put them in. So I can save $96 by going straight to OptumRx, which is the Blues prescription provider. I can simply change that over to mail order here, save my pharmacy, and my figures will update in just a moment. So now I've saved $96 a year for that beneficiary if they are willing to switch to mail order, and we can see their new figures update all throughout here. If I want to compare any of these plans for my beneficiary, I can do that here as well, simply by clicking on these checkboxes. Should mention that any of these plan links does give us summary of benefits, EOCs, and star ratings available to us here as well. For comparing these plans, once I can compare up to 3 plans here, I can either go straight to a comparison, and we'll not dive too far in here because there's more stuff I want to show you on the previous screen. But if I go straight to comparison, I see how things are covered at tier 1 through 4 throughout the coverage stages, and again have links to all the plan documents, and I have the opportunity to enroll. And we can also look at drug cost details. So I can put those estimated annual costs head-to-head, their premium costs head-to-head, the deductibles head-to-head, and look at how drugs are covered for these here as well when I get straight into the comparison. So I could see that this benzonatate is not on the formulary for either carrier. So could see that albuterol is covered at different tiers over here as well. And same with that Advair generic here as well. As I continue to scroll down, we can look at monthly drug costs, so I can see what stage of the Part D coverage stages they're in. So here at the beginning of the year, of course, they'll be in initial. As we continue to go downward, they're going to stay in initial. And they have pretty low drug costs throughout, rather. So again, they'll stay in the initial phase throughout the year here. But I do want to go back to the plans because I do want to show you how I can email this over. Simply, all I need to do is put in the beneficiary's email. They'll need a PIN just like we needed for the scope to be able to unlock this quote. And from there, they can conduct the enrollment here. In the training environment, the email functionality doesn't quite work for us. It's not hooked up to the to an email server, but it would work for you should you choose to email out quotes that way. I should also mention we've been working in list view here. There is more to be seen in X-ray view, where we can get a kind of a deeper look at some of these drugs. So we can see right away that benzonatate is not in the formulary here. I can see where albuterol and the other drug are covered here. Same with pharmacies, same with costs. And again, I have some plan features and overview I can look at, as well as the various coverage stages that we'll spend some time in here as well. I can look at other pharmacies and again have access to all those documents, as well as again going through the benefits details here and the drug cost details, which would show me again that month-by-month breakdown. So 2 different ways to get into the same place. As we worked with agents, some of them really like that comparison view where they can put 2 things side by side. Some of you, when you're kind of initially figuring out what you want to present, some of you have tended to prefer this view where you can kind of see right away whether this is a tier 2 or tier 3 drug and how that's going to directly impact cost for your person right away. Always have access to this navigate button here, so I can navigate to see, for example, what my cost would be in July. It brings me right to that portion of the screen, and again shows me what I'm going to expect to pay at that portion of the year. Jess, anything to add before we talk about what the enrollment process looks like for PDPs?
So Randy, maybe this will segue right into that. So originally when we set everything up, we said non-guaranteed issue for the med sup.
Mhm.
And we clicked on PDP. So is the system going to tell an agent or member that they need to have a specific SEP to enroll in that PDP? Or I know if we didn't put that it was an IEP for the birth date.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just, yeah.
great question, Jess, and that does come up in the application. So what we see from here on out looks like a standard Part D application you'd see from almost anyone else. So we'd have a chance here to review benefits. So I'd be able to check off that I've reviewed premiums, deductibles, copay tiers, summary of benefits, plan rating, and the summary of benefits here as well, and click OK. And get beneficiary consent that they understand the benefits included in this plan, assuming we've done our jobs well to this point. From here, we're putting the application in. So we said they were born in May 1957, I believe this app was, and they are a male. Putting in phone number, we'll use my email address here for now. You do have the option to choose whether or not the beneficiary wants to be contacted via email. We'll say yes for this case. We'll put in their address, able to choose whether they're experiencing homelessness, and again, have the opportunity to say mailing is different from permanent here. We'll say, no, we don't want to specify our race, but we do say maybe we want things in English, and we do want large print things because we need help with that. It does not like that I named them sample 2 here, so we'll call them sample the second here on the last name. And we'll put in a street address here as well and go on from here. Now, again, I do not have a MBI that will work for us here in this case. So the app sort of pauses here, but to Jess's point, she starts talking about what enrollment period we're going to use. I can either enroll using my IEP, or here is where I would choose my SEP. Maybe I lost employer coverage. That's why I'm moving in here late. Maybe, I have whatever other reason that I'm using to join a PDP at this time. Maybe it's during AEP, although obviously right now it is not AEP. But then I would be able to go through here. There's some coordination questions here as well that they'd ask for. And then you continue on the app just as you would with any other carrier. Those Part D apps do tend to look pretty samey as you go from one place to another. So Jess, does that help with your concern?
Yeah, I was just curious if it was going to get to that point because, I'm sure most people on this training know, yes, you might do a non-guaranteed issue, but you do have to have that SEP for the PDP.
Right. So great point, great reminder to bring up. So especially when they're NGI, we might have to come back and write this PDP later in the year if they're not eligible for one. And if I do need to write that later in the year, all I would need to do is search for that contact. So that was sample 2 we looked up here. And from here, that person that we just wrote, we could send them a new scope and move them forward. And I should mention that when I view that quote, all their information is stored that we already have in here, right? So their drugs are still stored, their pharmacy is still stored for us here. Meaning that once I put the information in once, I can keep my book of business in here rolling year over year, and really requires minimal data entry for me going forward unless their drugs change, unless their pharmacy changes. It really makes everything a lot easier for you going forward and save some time on the back end as you are putting those quotes together. All that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is the MedSup and PDP quoting and enrollment process in a nutshell. Jess, anything else to add before we open it up to our crowd for some questions here?
No, and I'm really excited that Sunfire has added this feature. Hopefully we'll get that enrollment piece, or they'll get that enrollment piece loaded for the MedSups, but it's a great starting point, I think. And again, being able to keep that prospect profile within the system and those scopes will be really helpful to agents.
Absolutely. That the document retention and that sort of doing the work for you and keeping everything on the background is really helpful, does save you a lot of time going forward. That said, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our demonstration here today. I promised you 45 minutes, got you through the demo in 40 here this morning. But again, happy to stick around for any questions you have. And Lorna, you asked a great one. How do you get enrolled in CoverageForOne? Lorna, I do encourage you to reach out to our individual team or your account manager if you so choose. They're happy to help you verify your credentials and make sure your account is set up. Jess, I see you're unmuted there as well.
Yes, Lorna, I am your account manager, and you already have a CoverageForOne link. So I can reach out to you after this training and just make sure that you have it. But usually, if you've contracted with us, we've already done the process of setting up a CoverageForOne for you. And typically, it's just your first initial last name .coverageforone.com. But then for the Sunfire piece of it, you would just go, I think Randy went through those steps in the beginning, just CoverageForOne.com, all spelled out like you see it on the screen there. Your username is just the email address we have on file, and then I'll send you your password because the initial password's a little lengthy, and then you can change it on the back end. Randy, do you want to just show where they would change that password once they have it?
Yep. So again, in the agent profile, the gear on the bottom left, you have the opportunity to change your password right up here and plug that up here where you're looking at your username and your RTS status here as well. Okay. Thank you, Lorna, for writing in and asking the question. I have to stick around for any other questions you might have here as well. Please feel free to keep them coming. We also know that we're approaching the end of our time here together today. So if you must leave because you do have an appointment, maybe you have a scope of appointment you need to get out the door right now. Won't begrudge you that either. So go ahead and let us know if you have anything that you need us to handle here. Otherwise, we'll see you all soon. I see a question coming in. Deborah Johnson asked if this program is recorded. Yes, Deborah, it was. It'll be in your inbox, so we'll deliver it to whatever email you registered with in about 24 hours from now. And all of our trainings, just like this one, are available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@actionbenefits. You can go visit us there and we'll be able to, you can view anything we've done here, whether it's this training or anything else. All right then, Jess, any parting words for the people before we say goodbye for the morning?
Thanks for joining, everyone. We really appreciated having you. And again, if you have any questions or need a walkthrough, any one of us on the individual team would be happy to help.
All right. Thank you, Jess, for joining. Thank you to our agent partners and friends for joining us here this morning as well. And we look forward to seeing you all again at another Action Academy session. Please enjoy your days.